Hi there, people. So today we're not talking about a broad issue, or, we're not going really broad. We're going very specific. I'd like to take some surgical precision off a channel whose videos I've been really fascinated with lately. This channel is called Moon. In my last video, Mail the Solution to Censorship, I pointed out that the USPS is a viable alternative to social media sites like Reddit or Facebook, providing just as much communication, theoretically even better communication. And I cited some cringe videos I had been watching which talked about the decline of Reddit since 2010 or something. I didn't say which cringe videos those were, but they come from this guy called Moon. This guy is British, and his profile picture is of the silent movie of, the moon getting the rocket in the eye, and he's pissed because, the rocket hurts him in the eye. But these videos, they're really crazy, so I figured, why not talk about them, because I think they say something about, the psyche of some people, just, in general, just the zeitgeist of the times we live in. Let's take a crazy journey into these weird little niche, video political essays, or they call themselves that, but let's check them out, because I really think they're worth an analysis. So this guy, Moon, his entire shtick essentially is I guess you'd call it neoconservatism, although I don't know if that's the political theory he himself would say he ascribes to. He seems to be very concerned with legitimate societal issues like technology's all-consuming grasp on the human consciousness. I won't be facetious. I'll say that's an issue that is generally in the modern age, in the modern thought process and everything, that's making the rounds on the big headlines like the New York Times and Vice and very reputable news agencies. At the same time, though, he makes videos shitting on Vice.
Vice now serves as a soft-sell advert for sanitized opinions and a sanitized culture.
And shitting on TikTok. And
TikTok is the most vulgar, vapid, self-absorbed, and dehumanizing social media site.
And shitting on Facebook.
As Facebook continued to grow, several of Zuckerberg's early collaborators accused him of stealing credit and shares in the company.
And shitting on Reddit.
Reddit was the only social media site that could have actually paved the way for a free and open internet.
And shitting on OnlyFans, and I don't know, it seems like the only social media service he hasn't completely taken a giant dump on in one of his videos yet is Dig or something. That's how much this guy seems to virulently hate every social media site. And I get it, a lot of social media sites are pretty cringe, but you kind of have to compare them quality-wise. Each one has slightly different or inferior or superior frameworks or algorithms or modes of operating, but Moon isn't interested in any of that, so he goes next level exaggerative hyperbole and calls all these social media sites just festering canker sores or festering cancers,
Facebook's new metaverse is relentlessly horrific.
And a lot of people call me old-fashioned, how I don't use online payments or online banking or stuff. But I like the internet. It's a nice invention. But this guy just shits on TikTok. I get that TikTok is kind of cringe, but that's just a natural result of the format TikTok offers. A 1-minute video is by default not going to be as interesting as a 10-minute video. A TikTok video is not going to be as high quality as a YouTube video just because of the limitations imposed on the creator.
I guess they never miss, huh?
But this guy just seems to hate TikTok and attribute it essentially to the decline of Western civilization, which I think is a little bit exaggerative. If you don't like TikTok, just don't watch TikTok, Now, I have had some people use the same approach on me. Oh, if you don't like something, just don't watch it. But That doesn't really work for like movies or TV shows, because there are a limited amount of movies and TV shows that can be made, you know, and like, for instance, if all the movies are superhero movies, the just watch what you want to watch argument doesn't really work out, because nobody is making good movies at that point. But I think that there are plenty of good YouTube videos being made currently, so the fact that this guy just feels the need to talk about how horrible TikTok is and whine about it and be like, oh no, TikTok. Oh no, TikTok is coming for your children, it's eating your kids.
TikTok has managed to gain a foothold in the psyche of tomorrow's young adults.
And like, you know, I mean, TikTok, none of the videos on there are good. That's not a secret or anything. Just don't go on TikTok, dude. Not that hard, you know. You don't have to go on TikTok. No one's forcing you to go on TikTok. Sometimes I feel like this guy is like a habitual social media user, but he's embarrassed about it or something, so he's like, aw, TikTok sucks. Oh, Twitter sucks. Oh no, Reddit is the devil. And this kind of like, I guess there's no better term for it, performative activism gets kind of tiresome after a while. Another of his videos, which I just find really crazy, is about OnlyFans. Now, I don't like OnlyFans, but it's for completely different reasons than this guy doesn't like OnlyFans. This guy doesn't like OnlyFans because he thinks that, like, today's men are weak.
It's a site created by losers for losers.
And they're soy boys, and women are degrading themselves.
OnlyFans is a virtual meat market where men pay women to degrade themselves.
Which is just a really terrible anti-prostitution argument. It sounds like something out of a 1950s health class documentary, you know, oh, today's women are so, they're degrading themselves so much with their vixen behavior, and today's men are being demasculated because they pay for online prostitution, which, like, there's nothing wrong with prostitution. It's the world's oldest profession, or so the saying goes. Now, there are some you know, people who say that that's kind of a factoid and is not accurate. I'm sure there was an older profession, surely, like, you know, mammoth hunter or whatever. But the point is that fundamentally there's nothing wrong with selling one's body. It's just a product, like potato chips. If you can sell potato chips, and supposedly capitalism favors a free market, so why would you have any problem with people buying and selling sex? It's just a product. I think part of the reason people don't like the prostitution market is because it is inherently profitable. You know, a woman's body is a more desirable product than a Tesla, and it'll sell more than a Tesla. So, like, every prostitute out there has Elon Musk pretty much cornered as far as the market goes, and they're going to rake in a lot of cash. But, you know, that's not a bad thing. That's capitalism at work. The more preferable item gets sold more. So I'm not sure why free market capitalists have such a gripe with prostitution. I guess just because it's the best product out there. And, like, you know, horniness is a universal inevitability as far as that goes. But this one guy, Moon, makes a bizarre video where for 20 minutes straight he just talks about how OnlyFans is a kind of pimp. Now,
Great civilizations do not celebrate pimps. Pimps are shamed.
I would kind of agree with this, because putting your faith in a third-party service is always a bad idea. But I think the way that OnlyFans is singled out just because of the, you know, sort of product and content it provides is a little bit unfair, because, like, OnlyFans, you know, when they said that they were going to get rid of all their adult content, that was well within their legal right to do, and that's what's scary about entrusting all your content to a third party. Legally, they can do anything. They can delete all your stuff at any time. So I think it would make a lot more sense for these electronic prostitutes of the internet age to sell their photos and videos through the mail on literal photographs and VHS tapes. That would be probably the smartest way. And also, you wouldn't have to keep paying a subscription fee. You could get this VHS tape of your favorite internet prostitute, and it would always play, and that'd be convenient. And that's probably the best way, the fairest way, I would say, for an internet prostitute to operate, just because selling things through the mail with real paper currency, fiat currency, is the most honest form of free market capitalism there is. But I think that that's not this guy's gripe at all. This guy's gripe just boils down to, prostitution makes me angry because I'm a real man and I have a real relationship.
OnlyFans is a putrid, nauseating assault against everything that's pure and decent.
And it's just really cringe. His OnlyFans video is just 20 minutes of him being like, our society is going down the shitter because there's all these prostitutes. And it's like, prostitution is nothing new. Prostitution has been around for like millennia. So it's not a sign of society falling apart. It's just that now it's done on the internet. Everything's done on the internet. Wake up and smell the coffee. So the next video of this guy's that I feel is worth mentioning is about how China plans to dominate the world. Now this is just a bizarre video, a bizarre title. It has Mao Zedong, or maybe it's Xi Jinping, I forget, but like they got like hypnotic eyes, and then there's an entire army of Chinese guys. The thumbnail, first off, it looks like a bad propaganda poster from the 1960s.
Whoever you are, wherever you are, discuss the Red Menace with your neighbors, your friends, your business associates, your fellow students.
The video starts off with Moon talking about how China was treated horribly by other countries for a lot of its run. The British tried invading it with opium, and the Japanese came in World War II and burned down entire villages and laid siege to it.
A time when China was attacked by the British, French, Japanese and Russians, putting China's civilization to shame.
And obviously these are horrible atrocities. We treated China like dirt for such a long time. And now China has the world's second largest GDP, so you'd think that the global community would kind of praise China for like, oh, you used to be a monarchy and you used to have an inefficient form of government and people used to treat you like dirt. Foreign powers used to stomp all over you. But like now you're a sovereign nation with a strong heritage and like a great economy, and you're functioning like there's no tomorrow. You'd think that would be the logical conclusion for people to draw. Like, oh, cool, China. Who doesn't like China? They invented clocks. They invented gunpowder. They invented the Great Wall of China. The Great Wall of China is awesome. They have so many cool temples, so many cool shrines, all those fun architecture, and the cities are just cool up the wazoo. But that's unfortunately not the way that we seem to see China here in Common Era 2021. No siree. Dunking on China seems to be the political cool thing to do in this day and age, which is just something I frankly will never understand.
China is inching towards world domination.
Like, China's older than every other country in existence. And what's more, in Moon's video, he seems to imply that China ended with the fall of the monarchy.
This is the time a civilization has before it dies, and it was 250 years before China's civilization died.
When actually I'd say China didn't really end, it just stopped with its dynastic system, which admittedly did not lead to a very prosperous government, but it's still fundamentally China. It's the same country it's always been. Like, yeah, sure, now they're communist, but they're still China, the same way the Soviet Union was still Russia, even though they didn't have a czar. And I just think it's so weird for like 20 minutes to hear this guy bash China and talk about how China plans to take over the world, which, as far as I know, is something China has not expressed interest in. I think China just enjoys being China.
The only answer was colonization. You see, back in the early days of China plotting its vengeance, Mao Zedong spent his life mapping out the blueprint for China conquering the world.
This kind of neo-racism seems to really have become trendy as of late, with even devoted liberals and socialists shitting all over China. And I feel like this is such a backwards step to take, you know? You didn't see this kind of thing in the 90s or 2000s so much, but it seems like as tension rises and builds up, you know, like a boiling pot of milk, it seems like everyone has taken to this kind of outdated Cold War stance and says, like, China's our enemy, even though China isn't our enemy, and they're not going to go to war with us, and they don't care. Like, I don't think China could care less about what Moon from YouTube has to say about them, but for whatever reason, Moon seems to think that his incredible bravado performance about how bad China is and how evil they are is going to bring Jinping down to his knees and cause the entirety of China to fall into a meltdown. Oh my gosh. It's just very cringe.
If we continue to follow this path of least resistance, if we don't snap out of this trance we were in,
I'm not even saying I'm like pro-China or anything. I'm not like the world's biggest fan of China. I'm sure I'm not. But like, if all you can do is hate on another country because they're different from you, that's racism. And I feel it's so weird to see people openly hate on a country just because they're communist. I feel like these people are thought out from the 1960s. Like it's the Brendan Fraser movie, Blast from the Past.
Oh, my lucky stars! A Negro!
Say what?
Where did this sudden surge of anti-Chinese rhetoric come from? It's so bizarre. And to think that racism like this is endorsed and like given a platform, it just blows my mind, quite frankly. It's wild. Anyway, I feel the last video of Moon's that I should mention here is probably gotta be his most recent videos about the metaverse. Now, of course, everyone's talking about the metaverse, along with NFTs. It's been like the two most talked about topics of 2021 and 2022, you know, because like, I think people are bored, and it's the pandemic, and everyone feels like, well, we gotta talk about something, we gotta have something to connect over, you know, because everyone's bored, because it's the pandemic. And it was the same thing with, like, Resident Evil, you know, when the vampire lady came out. That was probably the most exciting day for everyone. Everyone's like, oh, wow, it's a vampire lady, you know, because a lot of people, you know, they don't have enough integrity to focus on the real world. They've got to escape into their, you know, trends and fads and, oh my gosh, NFTs and metaverse. And, you know, it seems like every month there's something new that everyone will focus on. It's an interesting trend to watch play out in real time, I think, because people love, you know, feeling like they're a part of history and, oh my gosh, what we're doing is so significant. So Moon adds his own little slice to the pie by essentially talking about how the metaverse is like going to lead to this terrifying robotic scenario where, like, you know, it's going to be the Matrix, it's going to be Ready Player One. Oh my gosh, the metaverse is so scary.
if you thought Facebook's global omnipresence wasn't creepy enough, things are about to get a whole lot more dystopian.
Which I just think is really funny. It's a really funny video. I wouldn't suggest you go watch it because it's really cringe. Possibly the worst take on the metaverse I've ever seen. And there are plenty of things to call the metaverse out for, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of videos which do a great job of exploring Mark Zuckerberg's, you know, philosophy and the way he runs his companies and, you know, how the metaverse is and everything and virtual reality. That's fine. What I'm saying is that Moon just does like a horrible job of talking about the metaverse. All he says really is that, like, the metaverse is the most evil company ever to exist, and it will bring us to our knees.
Living in decaying dystopian megacities that are littered with piles of oozing feces.
It's like the most. It's like some cliche action movie stuff, and it's really weird because I guess he thinks the metaverse is going to be some kind of like societal necessity in the future, which, I don't think anyone is going to be forced to use the metaverse. Really not at all, I remember when it was about 2012, and I was in like 5th grade or something. I was assigned this book by Mikio Kaku called Visions of the Future or something like that. I don't remember the exact title, but it was by Mikio Kaku. And essentially Mikio Kaku gives a very detailed explanation of what the world of tomorrow would look like. This was around 2012, and he talked about virtual reality systems, which are now a thing. He talked about, electric cars and like that, which they were just starting to pick up steam in 2012. He talked about space elevators. Ultimately, Visions of the Future, I think, is a book that taught me not to be afraid of the passage of time. Before that, I had been kind of a technophobe, kind of afraid of the future and the possibilities that the future might bring. But I eventually just realized that, things change, but you don't have to change. If you don't want, you're a person with free will. You can do whatever the heck you want because you have self-determination. Just because everyone else is riding up in the space elevators, it doesn't mean you have to. No one's forcing you to. So, Visions of the Future ultimately convinced me that the future was harmless and benign. It's just things that have yet to happen. Now, I don't think the metaverse is a good thing. I think it's a marketing gimmick. I think it's going to die out. When people look back at Mark Zuckerberg and his promo video for the metaverse, they'll probably see it like how we today see the Jetsons.
With water that's wet.
A really stupid and bad look at the future from someone who has no idea what he's talking about. Because unlike Mikio Kaku, Mark Zuckerberg isn't a futurist. He's just a rich guy with a ton of money to throw around. And he doesn't know what technology is practical. The metaverse, by design, is a really stupid invention. I guess Moon thinks that the only solution to it is to whine about it and like these long, drawn-out, boring videos where he talks about how terrifying it'll be to live in a world with the metaverse. Oh my gosh, it's the metaverse. Oh my gosh.
We no longer have a sense of belonging, with our only destiny to be atomized and alone.
Like, the metaverse is stupid, but you don't have to go in the metaverse if you don't want. No one's forcing you to. No one's holding a gun to your head and going like, hey, get in the metaverse. You don't gotta. So when I see this British guy just like complaining for like 30 minutes on end about how the metaverse is the decline of Western civilization and oh no, it's going to collapse No, it's not, It's going to be regulated, or Facebook is going to go bankrupt, or Mark Zuckerberg is going to die. He doesn't look like the most healthy guy around, Ultimately, I think this whining about the metaverse is going to look really cringe in retrospect. The same way that, when COVID initially broke out, people responded with this intense fervor and they were like, oh no, it's the end of the world. And in retrospect, that's really cringe because it wasn't the end of the world. Time goes on, things continue as they've always continued, and ultimately change is just a natural consequence of the fact that we live in a linear universe with cause and effect. To complain about the metaverse as if it's going to turn us into the society from George Orwell's 1984, I think is very exaggerative. But then again, I do think that George Orwell and the kind of technophobic literacy he espoused lends itself very well to this kind of bizarre neoconservative drivel where you just complain and whine about things for 20 minutes straight without offering a better alternative. Isn't that what 1984 is all about at the end of the day?
The closest analogy I could think of to the addictive power of social media is probably heroin.
I don't think the metaverse is great or anything, but I think whining about it definitely isn't the solution. Just don't use the metaverse, and then you won't have to, use the metaverse, and its stock will probably drop if nobody uses it. Just don't use it if you don't like it. But I feel like this guy, who, by the way, has like Bitcoin links in his description, is kind of like the world's biggest hypocrite, because on the one hand he complains about technology while also like partaking in that technology, and it's just so weird and cringe, and it's just like he doesn't seem to have a handle on reality. He seems to be kind of overreacting, if you catch the drift, just like...
Turns out a whole generation of people are now wired into these dopamine-sucking videos, with the original source of this ugly behavior being TikTok.
Making a big fuss about something which does not concern him or anyone, really. I don't think the metaverse will affect anyone who doesn't use Facebook. I don't use Facebook. It's a stupid website. It's designed as shit. So it's not like I'd ever use Meta. I don't use Facebook. So I'm not going to be using Meta. I just think this reaction is very exaggerative. Also, in his video about metaverse, he mentions how like religious services like Hillsong, the giant mega church, have been convinced by Mark Zuckerberg to hold their sermons and services on Meta.
The church was approached by Facebook, with the proposition being that the church could gain far-reaching expansion if they were to join in on the metaverse.
And like the conclusion Moon draws from this is that society is devolving because we have a lack of spiritualism, which and in the same video he quotes Nietzsche, who's like the ultimate rational atheist, mad lad, so that's just kind of a weird contrast. But he complains about megachurches holding their services on Facebook as if megachurches aren't, motivated by profit. Oh no, my favorite megachurch is hosting its services on the metaverse now. Whatever will I do? Find a new church, maybe? I don't know.
This was an offer that was all too tempting in a world that continually shuns away the church from regular life.
It's just so weird to hear this guy complain for hours on end about the metaverse, and OnlyFans, and China, and Reddit. And I think at the end of the day, this is the kind of stuff that neoconservatism eventually leads to. I've seen one or two political essays in my day, one or two videos talking about the, substantive differences between, communism and capitalism, or globalism and sovereignty, and vice versa. And that kind of stuff is very interesting. Political theory is fascinating. But these videos don't qualify as, political video. They're not even political videos by a Ben Shapiro standard. They're just cringe. They have these stupid fast meme edits with Pepe and stuff.
Then the real question is, how do you colonize in the 21st century without raising some suspicions?
And they're just complaining about something, offering no solutions, no analysis. It's just this guy being well, OnlyFans is the devil, and that's the extent of it. And also, in one video, he uses the term socialism for the rich, which I just think is such a funny term to use, socialism for the rich. I don't think that's how socialism works, buddy, but what do I know? Okay, I thought socialism was for everyone, that's the point of socialism. I guess he's just tossing out word salad at this point, It's bizarre. It's truly bizarre, and I think this kind of approach is kind of like, this approach to journalism and this approach to like looking at the world in an analytical way, it's really dangerous, and it's really like, it's not looking good for the future of political content here on the internet if all we have is some British guy being like, "Oh no, OnlyFans is the devil, mate. Aw, dang it, it's OnlyFans."
Case of OnlyFans, you have all these young lonely men in society who feel socially anxious and repressed.
It's really cringe, and I just thought I'd point that out. He has a video about Vice, whose videos, like, yeah, they're not the best, like, videos or anything, but they're good journalism. They do their job, right? Like, I'm not gonna say that Vice is, like, amazing or anything. Some of their content's kind of cringe. Some of it, seems to only be, like, the most, crazy thing. They have a series called Slut Ever, where some lady goes around and talks to people who are in the business of making latex condoms and what have you. But, like, Vice is a competent news organization. Their videos are much more interesting than the drivel that this Moon guy shells out, where he just is like, "Western civilization is falling apart and soon it's going to be 1984, I mean, Vice covers some of the gnarliest shit out there. They make documentaries where they just send their crew into a cannibal complex. They have a video where a guy is sitting with a literal cannibal who like eats ears and stuff.
In this episode, we go to Liberia and hang out with cannibal warlords.
I doubt Moon has done that at any point in his career as an investigative journalist, gone into a cannibal hive, I really doubt he's met with an actual cannibal, which is something Vice has done, So he has a video where he shits on Vice, and he makes a weird argument that, like, Vice was better in the good old days when Gavin McInnes was working at Vice, which...
Co-founder Gavin McInnes leaves the company for good, going on to his next venture, the Proud Boys.
Yeah, don't even get me started on Gavin McInnes, because I bet this Moon guy and Gavin McInnes agree on a lot, if you know what I'm saying. But, I just think that's such a crazy stance to take. It'd be like, Vice is shit, but my 20-minute cringe Reddit rants, that's what gets it, I mean, I dislike Reddit fundamentally. I think Reddit did me wrong. I have a personal grudge against Reddit. I'm not just some whiner who's like, "Oh, Reddit is contributing to the collapse of Western civilization. All our women are becoming heathens and our men are becoming soy boys." I'm not like that. I have a personal, rational reason for disliking Reddit and its policies. I'm not going to make 20 minutes of whining about Reddit, especially in video form. That's what the podcast I make is for. But, ultimately I think complaining about the internet is just like beyond cringe. The internet is a nice innovation. There are bad actors who will exploit it for profit, but that's been done with any, technological innovation, the music industry. When records started being produced, people exploit it for money, and there were some bad actors. When movies started being made, people exploit it. There are some bad actors. That doesn't mean all records or all movies are bad, Some are good, some are great, some are fun. It's the same with the internet. There are some great sites on the internet, but if you only look at the small slice of the internet that's like TikTok, then yeah, I guess the internet doesn't have much in store for you, because you're only looking at like 0.01% of the iceberg that is like the largest database of documents ever in the history of man. And I guess Moon will never know the excitement of hunting through old forum threads or looking at old, at old archives of stuff and, looking at news sites that are experimental and have all kinds of HTML and crazy stuff on them, you know. There's good websites on the internet. In my last video, Mail the Solution to Censorship, I talked about how the internet is slowly becoming privatized, and mail is probably the best alternative for people who actually want to be part of any kind of counterculture. If you want to feel cool or different or unique, the way to do it isn't by buying a Bored Ape Yacht Club, because then you're just like every other freaking normie, you know. But if you do want to be a normie and enjoy the internet, and even enjoy a Bella Porch video on TikTok, then like, I can't say TikTok is like the worst thing. There are much worse things out there. Most video games are horrendous, much worse than what you'd find on TikTok. Same goes for Quentin Tarantino movies. Those things are terrible. And again, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is much, much worse than TikTok. I can go to any video on TikTok, and I guarantee it'll be better than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
You're in this?
Mm-hmm. I play Miss Carlson, the klutz.
But this isn't a video about Quentin Tarantino. This is a video about Moon. Really interesting videos. They say a lot about the way that people tend to think about current political trends, NFTs, the metaverse, OnlyFans, like that. You know, it's a complex and strange world we find ourselves in. But at the end of the day, this is what should be kept in mind if you're worried about NFTs or the metaverse or the future or the decline of Western civilization. This is the one thing I think anyone should be able to take away from this situation. You have the choice not to do anything you don't feel is ethically or morally justified, and you should use that choice. As a member of a free society, as a member of a democracy, it's important to exercise your free will and do what you feel is good for you, you know? Free will is a good thing. And the way to enact change isn't to whine about the metaverse while using the metaverse. Don't go on the metaverse. It's stupid. It's a dumb technology that nobody needs. I think the backlash against NFTs is phenomenal. It's amazing to see so many people come out against a gimmicky, planned obsolescence pile of garbage. These technologies that these greedy morons keep offering global consumers. I think we've reached an age of post-modernity and self-awareness where we can see through a marketing gimmick like that and say, we've had enough, give us something with some practical function. And I wish that we had already been there when we switched from VHS to DVD, because VHS is such a better format, but DVD had a lot of marketing hype behind it.
DVD movies generally cost $15 to $35.
I wish that we had been there when, you know, people stopped using mail order catalogs, because they really are a great way to sell and buy things and make friends and meet people, and, you know, it's fun. But I think the backlash against NFTs is an unprecedented return to form for society, for humanity at large. It makes me optimistic about the future to see so many people look at this Silicon Valley pipe dream and say, we've had enough. That is inspiring. That is an inspiring statement, to see so many people just dunk on this stuff that they clearly don't need. But Moon's way of dunking on it by blaming the communists isn't productive. That's my point. That's what I hope to get across here. Because at the end of the day, I think what Moon's videos reveal is a kind of weird contradiction, I suppose you could call it, in the neoconservative mindset where, you know, they believe society is falling apart due to the degradation of the internet and the vile scourge it offers, or whatever Moon says in his videos.
Who's better at social engineering than TikTok's biggest investors, the Chinese government?
What is it?
The sky! I have never in my life seen anything like it before!
At the same time, though, you know, they feel the need to perpetuate late-stage capitalism and be like, well, you know, we need to keep creating new products and new Teslas and new apps and in this never-ending cycle of stuff you don't need and don't want. And So the only thing left is to blame like China, which is just a euphemism for socialists at this point. Even though socialism is actively against this kind of useless product creation, this kind of rampant useless consumerism. I'm not even a communist. I would consider myself a liberal at best, because I think to call yourself a communist you require a lot of conviction, more than I have. And I personally see nothing wrong with buying and selling stuff, but to see all these like fellas really far on the right who are like anti-prostitution and anti-China, hate on the very systems that they themselves endorse and perpetuate through conservatism, it's very weird and very funny in a lot of ways. I think Moon's channel and his videos could serve as a kind of historical artifact in the future. Now, I don't know if Moon's gonna watch this video or comment on it or what, but you know, you might think that my response is in some way endorsed by Mark Zuckerberg, or I'm being paid by China or something, if you're watching this, Moon. But I really just think your videos are very interesting. I think in 100 years or so, they could serve as a very interesting little time capsule, a very interesting glimpse into 2021, when the pandemic had everyone in such a kind of mental fray that, I mean, everything just seemed like so bad, you know, so terrible and so scary and so insecure, and everyone was under such a bind, you know, that like they had to make 20-minute long videos, dedicate 20 minutes of their time to being like, well, Mark Zuckerberg is going to ruin civilization or something.
Snoop Dogg is buying virtual property in the metaverse.
It's like, yeah, Facebook is dumb, but it's not everything. You know, there's things outside Facebook. I think it's important to remember that overall. Just like, you don't gotta use the metaverse. You don't. Just don't do it, and it won't be a thing. If there's nobody on the metaverse, good luck making the metaverse a thing, you know. So yeah, I just thought I'd talk about Moon's videos. I guess, you know, I've kind of ranted for like 20 or 30 minutes about these videos, but by golly, they are very interesting. And to think that they call themselves like political commentary, you know. It reminds me of the days in like Anita Sarkeesian was getting dunked on, and it was so cool to be an anti-SJW, because, you know, these SJWs, they're so cringe. Oh, we rational skeptics, we totally aren't cringe. And to think that kind of brand of, like, rational skeptic, which, that's not what these people were. They were just whiners and complainers. At least the Anita Sarkeesian drama was, like, somewhat nuanced and complex, and had kind of a point around it, like, you know, do video games need to represent different demographics? You know, is third wave feminism a thing, or is it post-feminism, or what is it, you know?
Do you wear heels? Do you wear makeup? Do you want to go on a diet and get thin? Don't do any of those things!
That's interesting. But I think this kind of renaissance of this kind of like skeptic content, where you just have a British guy shouting at the top of his lungs for half an hour straight, just like, oh, TikTok is the end of it's the end, it's the apocalypse, it's going to bring about the death of people, and like, family values are what's for me, and oh, all you soy boys who use OnlyFans, you're contributing to the death of the world. Oh, you know, it's really funny, quite honestly, and maybe Moon should pursue a career as a comedian or something. I bet he'd get a lot of laughs at an average comedy club or something, because, I mean, some of the stuff he says is just so blissfully, like, ignorant, you know.
More than half of the American population has already turned over their most sensitive data to the Chinese government.
Nicholas Cicada, 1424 Columbine Street, number 1, Denver, Colorado, 80206. I myself believe in making the internet cool again, and the best way to do that is through mail-order comics. So, if you want to get some of these comics, they're coming hot off the press, and it ain't gonna stop. It don't stop till you pop it to the rocket till the socket. That's gonna do it for this installment of my interesting, nuanced political takes, which are very different from those other interesting, nuanced political takes. Don't forget to smash the entire space-time continuum, and sayonara, suckers.